All right. So can we have another round of applause for tonight's performers? Great. So good work, everybody. So to kick things off here, I want to start by asking you the same question I asked last night, which was, as you were working on your pieces, what surprised you this term?
What surprised me most was how much my project changed over the course of the trimester. Initially, it was meant to be a video covering multiple pieces of repertoire, but in the end, I decided to drastically scale it down and just focus on one section of one movement of one piece.
I learned how difficult it is to write a song without a deadline one day away. I feel like I just like could never get myself to like really sit down and get all of my thoughts into one song without such a short period of time and external pressure. And I feel like that made my song very like I think the best it could be, honestly, because it was all of my brain's energy going into it at one time, and it was really a cohesive thing. And I thought I was going to be like working on a verse here, chorus here. I wrote the whole thing in one day, pretty much. I mean, all the words, all the lyrics in one day. The rest of the song came together throughout the course of it, but yeah.
For me, the most surprising thing was probably just learning. It's been a really long time since I've done a skating routine because I had to take a break from COVID, so it was actually way harder than I remember getting right back into that again. And also for the violin part, since I learned it by ear, I'm still pretty new to learning a lot of pieces by ear. So the process was a lot more difficult than I was expecting initially, but I think I came out of it with a lot of experience because I was able to go back into my skating choreography again, and also go to my or learn a full piece with lyrics by ear. A lot of the pieces I was learning by ear before didn't have any lyrics, so it was really interesting to have lyrics in there because you have to actually listen for each syllable when you're learning it by ear.
When I started my project, I had a very basic surface level understanding of the three pieces I was performing. And throughout the research process, I consulted a lot of resources. I talked to my mom. Thank you, Miss Lee, for your helpful scholarly articles that you sent me. And through this research, I was able to really discover the sheer cultural and historical depth of these pieces and how they were performed so many years ago. And it's just really fascinating how these pieces have prevailed through history, and I'm so glad I was able to perform these. It was a very rewarding process.
I was surprised that I finished because I feel like when I write stuff, I never finish. But at one point, you just gotta say like, "This is finished," and you gotta get to a point where you're like, "Yeah, I can call this finished." So I'm just surprised I got to that point because normally when I write stuff, I'm always like, "Oh, I could always do more," but you know, there's a deadline.
I would say learning that not everything is like linear and that creativity isn't going to come to you all at once. And I would say I definitely had to work out of like certain mental blocks in terms of choreography. And I had to go to Noelle, our wonderful dance teacher, in terms of trying to almost step outside for a second. I like particularly always choreograph jazz. And so I don't really do contemporary a lot. And so I feel like that was different. I feel like learning, like stepping out, trying different songs, trying different techniques, I feel like definitely really worked, and kind of taking it not so much thinking about it all at once, but taking it step by step, I feel like was definitely the approach I had to go with.
For me, I think just like having to hold myself and only myself accountable for my own choreography, because I've learned many dances in the past, and I've choreographed group dances in the past. And when there are other people around, it's much easier to remember what I've done, or when I have to teach it to somebody else, it's stuck in my mind. But when it's just myself, tends to leave my brain more often.
Same as the other dancers. I agree with all that, but I also learned to trust myself more. A lot of the times with choreography comes self-doubt and a lot of perfectionism. But I just learned to trust me, trust my passion, trust my talent, and let that carry me through my project, basically.
Thank you, scholars. I'd love to open it to the audience to ask questions, either of all of the scholars or any particular scholars that you want to follow up with specific questions. If you have a question, you just raise your hand.
No.
A question was if the songs are available to stream
one day.
anywhere.
Maybe
And
one day.
apparently, not yet. Other questions for our scholars? Yes.
They were in Hebrew, which is the language of the Jewish people, so that is why I chose to use them. Yeah, the second one really had nothing to do with the meaning of the piece. It was a more religious text that a group of young boys sang. And then the third one is a song by a pretty popular Hebrew artist. And the chorus was basically saying, I'm champion of the world, I fall down, but I rise like a phoenix from the ashes.
Other questions from the audience? I'd love to hear if the scholars wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about the influences that you had going into this project. A lot of you were working from personal experience. A lot of you were reflecting on your past, your family relationships, your social identity. So what brought this project forth?
A lot from the internet. That's where I've seen a lot of anti-Semitism, but then my second piece was more about support from the non-Jewish community, and that's why I used that song, because in the fall, that group became a little bit popular on TikTok and reached many non-Jewish people, and they really enjoyed the group. And I also took the title of my piece, Stand With Us, from the username of a Jewish activism account on Instagram. So those were some of my influences.
So mine was some personal experience, and so the influences I drew from were mostly music, and particularly there was songs such as Matilda, My Tears Ricochet, which they kind of spoke to me, and they've always been songs that I've always loved and related to, and I felt like it would be great to put them in to try to convey the message, not only through movement, but also through lyricism. So that's where I drew most of my influence from in terms of pop culture and music.
My influences really came from all over. My first piece was to a song by Nina Simone, who was very prevalent in advocating that Black women be included in the feminism movement in history. So I did a lot of research on the Harlem Renaissance, which was when jazz music, jazz dance became very popular for that piece. My second one was inspired by my beautiful grandmother who's sitting right there. It came from, yeah, round of applause. My mom, grandmother, great-grandmother, we all grew up on Whitney Houston, every single album. So for me, it was no doubt that I wanted to do a Whitney song. And my third one really just came from Beyonce and her entire, what she stands for, what she does for Black women everywhere. So yeah, those were some of my influences for my project.
My influence for my project was you guys out there, because I wanted to write songs that sounded sick in here. When I'd write stuff in the songs, I'd be like, yo, this would sound sick in the theater. And I'd come in with the mentality of will this sound fire in here? because I want you guys to enjoy it, and hopefully I made something enjoyable for you guys to enjoy.
I've always wanted to do a project relating to my cultural heritage, and growing up, I've always heard pieces played on erhu, and I thought it was really a beautiful instrument, a beautiful sound, and I've never learned the erhu, so I knew I wouldn't be able to do that. But I kind of was able to bridge that connection by playing it on alto saxophone, which is a very Western instrument, and I was able to emulate the sound of the erhu by kind of bending my notes and making inflections and grace notes and really working on phrasing and just making my sound more string-like. I felt like throughout this process, I was really able to give my own interpretation of these traditional folk tunes. So I'm very proud of it.
For my project, my inspirations came a lot from the internet and other interpretations of like how people played it. Because when I was learning the song by ear, I listened to like the original song and a couple other artists who also tried doing their own violin cover or on other instruments that they play. And I think every artist has their own interpretation of that, and you have like little stylistic things that you can incorporate. So that's where a lot of my inspiration for the violin part came from. And for the ice skating part, I saw a lot of YouTube videos online of other people doing ice skating choreography to hit the road jack. And I think the song itself is just like, it really feels like you can dance to it, and you know like what the next step is going to be. So you can kind of just go with the flow of the song. And yeah.
The biggest inspiration for my project is definitely my parents. I mean, growing up around music, I was signed up for piano lessons. My mom took me every Tuesday from 1st to 6th grade. And then I stopped after 6th grade because I had the choice to, and I was like, this is too much, and I don't want to do it anymore. So I didn't take piano lessons all up until this year, and I had one this year because I started playing again because I was listening to Chamber of Reflection, one of the songs I played, and I was like, you know what, I could play this on the piano, I think. And then I just figured it out and then just kept learning more and more songs from there. And the bass from the piano lessons that I had, like the musical knowledge that I had, just allows me to do so much on the piano that I wouldn't have been able to do if I didn't take those lessons. And just like all the musical knowledge that my parents have just like put into my brain as I've grown up, just really made it really easy to do everything in this project. Yeah.
My big influence is the phenomenal musicologist, performer, improviser, and Mozart scholar Robert Levin. Levin has a ton of lectures, and a lot of his recordings of these lectures are out on YouTube. So I watched some of them. I was obviously learning a lot from them and sort of emulated his style of lecturing.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your support of our Scholars Program. Want to give a shout out to Mr. Raffetto in the back for helping make this night a possibility. We hope that you enjoyed the rest of your evening and hope to see you again next year. Take care.